She leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into that condescending smile, and said, "Real men don't argue. They just pay and shut up." I looked her dead in the eye, calm and collected, and replied, "Thanks for the advice." Then, without a second thought, I asked the waiter to split the bill. I paid for my own dinner, nothing more, and walked out. Behind me, her laughter faltered, then stopped entirely when the check landed on the table. Her friends' expressions shifted from amusement to dawning realization as they understood they'd just been left stranded. I'm 32, a data analyst by trade. My livelihood depends on recognizing patterns, following trends, and drawing rational conclusions. Yet for 2 years, I ignored the most glaring set of data in my own personal life: my relationship with Isabella, 28. The pattern was her ever-increasing demands for a lifestyle she couldn't afford. The trend was my slow descent from equal partner to financial provider. The conclusion was obvious. I wasn't her boyfriend. I was her cash machine. I told myself her beauty was enough to justify it, that the perfect image of our relationship was worth the cost. But maintaining that facade was draining me dry. And then came the final piece of data, the point where the whole equation tipped. Her birthday dinner. She had chosen Aurelia, a restaurant where just sitting down feels like a luxury expense. On top of that, she invited her 2 closest allies, Sasha and Talia. Together, the 3 of them were a force of entitled consumption. The night played out like a performance of decadence. Isabella didn't bother glancing at the menu. "We'll start with the Aurelia Grand Platter," she announced. "And a bottle of the Veuve, the good one." That seafood tower alone cost more than my weekly grocery budget, and the champagne was nearly $300. My stomach knotted as I sat silently, knowing how this would end. The parade of orders continued. 3 Wagyu steaks dripping in truffle butter. Elaborate cocktails with pretentious names. Another bottle of wine. They posed for selfies, staged laughter, and treated me as a silent accessory. The wallet that made their show possible. Then Isabella brought up a recent argument. She wanted a luxury weekend getaway, while I had suggested something a little more practical, though still enjoyable. She retold it with exaggerated dramatics. "Can you believe he actually wanted to argue about the budget?" Sasha gasped like it was a crime. "No. The whole point of a man is that he takes care of things. You shouldn't even think about that." "Exactly what I told him," Isabella chimed in, and then she turned to me with a smirk that could curdle blood. "You need to understand, Liam. Real men don't argue about money. They just pay and shut up." Her friends roared with laughter. Isabella waited for me to play the role. Ashamed, apologetic, submissive. Instead, everything snapped into clarity. The numbers I'd been running in my head for months finally balanced. The knot in my gut wasn't fear anymore. It was certainty. I looked at her, and for the first time, felt absolutely nothing. When the waiter discreetly set the bill on the table, Isabella gave me the look. The unspoken order, pay. I opened the folder. The total, after tax, was just over $1,200. They watched me like they always did, expecting the ritual to play out. I met Isabella's gaze, gave her a small smile, and said, "Thanks for the advice." She assumed I'd finally fallen in line. She was wrong. I waved the waiter over. "I'd like to pay for my portion separately," I said evenly. The waiter didn't hesitate, but Isabella's face cracked. "Liam, what are you doing?" she hissed. Calmly, I itemized. 1 ribeye steak, $85. 1 beer, $12. That's $97. Add 9% tax, $105.73. Plus a $25 tip. Total charge, $130.73. I might as well have been reading from a balance sheet. The waiter nodded, professional as ever. "Of course, sir." Isabella's expression twisted from smug to furious disbelief. "Stop this right now," she snapped. Her friends stared, wide-eyed, speechless. I handed over my card, signed the receipt when it returned, and slid my phone into my pocket. Without another glance at them, I stood, pushed in my chair, and walked away. Behind me, Isabella's voice hissed like steam. "Where is he going? Get him back here." Outside, the night air was cool, almost refreshing. My chest felt lighter than it had in years. My phone buzzed nonstop before I even reached the corner. Her frantic texts filled the screen. Where are you? Get back here right now and pay the bill. Liam, I'm serious. This isn't funny. I ignored it all and hailed a cab. As I climbed in, I pictured the scene I'd left behind. The waiter returning with the check, laying it in front of them. The remaining balance, $1,692. Isabella's laughter gone. Her friends' faces turning pale as reality set in. The frantic scramble for a credit card they hadn't expected to use. She told me real men pay and shut up. She was half right. I didn't argue. I paid for myself. Then I shut up. And I walked away. The looks on their faces told me everything. They finally realized their free ride had ended. I pictured the frantic, humiliating shuffle as they scrambled to cover a bill they had never planned on paying. She had told me once, real men pay and shut up. Well, she was half right. I didn't argue. I paid for what was mine and I left. That wasn't just dinner, that was my buyout. I knew a storm was on the horizon, but I was ready. She lived in my apartment, wrapped in an ego so inflated it blocked out reason. Let her rage. The evening was over. The cab ride back was blissfully silent, the opposite of my phone, which was buzzing itself to death in my pocket. Missed calls and angry texts from Isabella, Sasha, and Talia kept popping up. I ignored them all. When I stepped inside my apartment, the one with only my name on the lease, a fact about to prove very important, I finally checked the messages. As expected, Isabella's rants filled the screen. You embarrassed me in front of my friends. You humiliated me. Talia's dad had to cover the bill with his emergency credit card. Do you know how awful that was? You owe me $1,692. I'm sending you my Venmo. Pay it now. I'm coming home and that money better be ready. I muted the threats and waited. An hour later, the door slammed against the stopper. Isabella stormed in, fury radiating off her. Her purse hit the floor. What the hell was that? She demanded. I stayed on the couch. That was me following your advice. My advice? You abandoned me. Me? You're the one who said real men don't argue. They pay and shut up. I didn't argue. I paid for myself, shut up and left. I followed your instructions to the letter. She froze, the logic short-circuiting her fury for a moment. That's not what I meant. You know it. You were supposed to pay for everyone. That's your role. That's the arrangement. My role? The arrangement. I leaned forward. So this was just a business deal to you? Good to know. In that case, consider my contract terminated. She threw her arms up. You're really going to throw away 2 years over one stupid dinner? It was never about the food. It was about the truth hidden in that one line. Pay and shut up. That told me exactly what I am to you. Not a partner. A wallet. And I'm quitting that job. Her fury shifted into panic. She looked around the apartment, realizing just how much she stood to lose. This is ridiculous, she stammered. You're just emotional. You'll regret this. Now, are you sending me the money for dinner or not? No, I said flatly. That bill belongs to you, your friends, and Talia's dad. Fine. Be a cheap, pathetic child. I'm going to bed. We'll talk in the morning after you come to your senses. She turned toward the bedroom. No, I cut in. My voice made her stop. You're not. Pack a bag with what you need. You're leaving tonight. Her face twisted in disbelief. What? I live here. No, I do. My name's on the lease. Our relationship is over. Which means your stay here is over. You can come back on the weekend to get the rest of your stuff. We'll schedule it. The blow landed hard. Losing the dinner had been an embarrassment. Losing me was inconvenient. But losing the apartment, the hub of her entire lifestyle, was catastrophic. You can't do this, she cried, real fear spilling into her voice. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, Isabella. Maybe Sasha or Talia can host you. I'm sure they'd love to put up the person who just cost their family over $1,000. Not my problem. It was cruel, but it was the truth. She stared at me, the reality sinking in. Her rage was a mask for the terrified person beneath, someone who had built her life on my foundation. And that foundation was gone. You'll regret this, Liam, she hissed. I already regret wasting 2 years, I said. This is me fixing that mistake. Pack your bag. I'll call you a ride. She stormed off to the bedroom, drawers slamming open. I knew exactly what she was aiming for, the expensive camera kit I had bought her, the one meant to jumpstart her influencer dreams. The one I had receipts for. The week after that dinner was all strategy. She left that night, and the next morning I received a $1,692 Venmo request labeled, "Dinner you owe me, coward." I declined with a single word, no. We agreed via text, my chosen battleground, that she could collect her things Saturday afternoon while I supervised. When the day came, she arrived with Sasha and Talia, their arms full of empty boxes, their expressions smug. I stood guard at the door. "Just get my stuff," Isabella muttered, refusing to look at me. That's when the games began. Clothes and shoes went into boxes, which was fine. But then Sasha shouted from the bathroom, "Don't forget the nice towels." "The towels stay," I said. "But Isabella uses them," Sasha argued. "They're basically hers. Usage doesn't equal ownership. They stay." On and on it went. A lamp she had picked out, but I had bought. An espresso machine I'd paid for that she claimed was hers, because she used it daily. I shut every attempt down calmly. "I have the receipt. Leave it." Their frustration grew. They weren't moving her out, they were trying to strip me bare. Then came the climax. Talia walked out of the office holding the Sony Alpha kit, the $3,000 setup I had bought for Isabella's birthday. "Okay, we're taking the camera now," Talia said. "No, you're not," I replied, stepping in front of her. Isabella finally snapped. "What do you mean no? You bought it for my birthday. It's mine. It was given as part of a shared future that doesn't exist anymore. It was an investment in us. That investment's gone. The camera stays with me." Her jaw dropped. "You can't take back a gift. That's illegal. I'll call the cops." "Go ahead. I've got the credit card statement and the serial number. It's mine. It doesn't leave this apartment." Silence stretched between us. They had no move. Faced with hard proof instead of drama, they backed down. "You're the most bitter, petty man I've ever known," Isabella spat. "And you're the most entitled, transactional woman I've ever met," I shot back. "Now finish packing your clothes and get out." They left in silence, seething. I felt victorious. But later that night, victory soured. I went into my office to back up some files and reached for my external hard drive. It was gone. My years of personal travel photography, my creative soul, vanished. It had no value to her, but to me it was priceless. She had taken it just to wound me. An hour later, a text from a burner phone confirmed it.my phone buzzed with a notification. A message popped up. "Looking for something?" It was her. Me. "Give it back, Isabella." Her reply came fast. "Unknown. Give me my camera first. The one you stole from me. We can do a trade." It felt less like a text exchange and more like a hostage negotiation. My memories, my art, everything stored on that hard drive, were being held ransom in exchange for a $3,000 camera kit. For a moment, I thought about surrendering. Just hand it over, I told myself, and this nightmare will be over. But then her voice echoed in my head. "Real men don't argue. They just pay and shut up." If I caved now, I'd be proving her right. I'd be confirming that I could be bullied into compliance whenever she wanted. That wasn't going to happen. This wasn't emotional anymore, it was tactical. She had something priceless to me in a personal sense, but with little financial worth. I had something expensive she believed she could leverage. But unlike her, I had the receipts. 3 months later it was over. My apartment finally felt like a sanctuary again. I hadn't won by out-scheming her or sinking to her level. I won by using the one thing she always hated about me, logic. The weekend after her threat, I barely slept. The idea of losing years of photography, images that marked my growth, my vision, my life, was suffocating. But I knew instinctively that if I gave in, she'd only escalate. She'd hold the next thing hostage, and the next until there was nothing left of me but the shell she could manipulate. So I sat down and built my case. Every receipt, every credit card charge, the serial number of the Sony Alpha A73 camera, proof that it was mine, purchased solely by me. Then I screenshotted her own words. Her admission of having my hard drive, her demand for a trade. It wasn't just petty anymore. On paper, it was extortion. When I drafted the email, I made it clinical, stripped of emotion. No begging. No bargaining. Just facts. Isabella, you currently have my Seagate 2 terabytes external hard drive, taken from my apartment. This contains my personal creative work. I have in my possession the Sony Alpha A73 camera kit, serial number XXX. I have receipts and credit card statements confirming my ownership, valued at $2,850. Your text message constitutes admission of theft and an attempt at extortion. You have 48 hours to return the hard drive in full working condition. The meeting point will be a public, neutral location. I suggest the lobby of a police station. Failure to comply will result in me filing a police report for felony theft, as the camera's value exceeds the threshold for grand larceny. I will also include your written admission of attempted extortion. Such a charge will damage your influencer brand irreparably. The choice is yours. Liam. I read it twice, then hit send. The next 36 hours were torture. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected the worst, that she'd smash the hard drive in a fit of spite. But finally, a one-word email came back. Fine. We met in the lobby of a bank near my office. A place full of cameras, people, and no chance of manipulation. She arrived with Talia, but the fire was gone from her eyes. She looked drained, her face pale, her shoulders tense. Without speaking, she placed the hard drive on the counter. I plugged it into my laptop, heart pounding. The directory loaded. Every folder. Every photo. I opened a few at random, perfect, untouched. Relief washed through me. Thank you, I said quietly. She sneered, spitting her words like venom. Are we done? Yes, I said, slipping the drive into my bag. We're done. She turned sharply and stormed out, Talia trailing behind her. That was the last time I ever saw Isabella. The consequences hit her harder than I could have engineered. Talia's father, furious about the $1,000 dinner bill she'd dragged his daughter into, cut ties. The friendship collapsed. Without her enablers, without me funding the illusion, Isabella's influencer dreams crumbled. The constant stream of designer outfits, curated brunches, and staged vacations evaporated. Her accounts went quiet. Word eventually reached me that she had left the city, broke and desperate, moving in with a distant relative. From luxury branding to folding shirts in retail, her idea of a personal hell. I never wanted her destruction. That wasn't the goal. My goal was survival, refusing to be collateral damage in her fantasy life. When she tried to drag me into her game, I simply refused to play. I made it a game of evidence, of logic, of consequences. A game she could never win. Now when I open my hard drive and see my photos, they carry more weight than before. They aren't just images. They're proof of what I reclaimed, my work, my dignity, my voice. For years I paid and kept quiet. But not anymore. I don't just pay. And I definitely don't shut up.